Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review, or reviews should I say, for 3 fights from the Night of Heavyweights card in Germany. Agit Kabayel defending his EBU title against Andriy Rudenko. Tom Schwarz was on the bill. He's got a knockout, we'll get to that. And also there was the pro debut of Kadiru, amateur standout who's turned pro. So buckle in. Let's go. So we're going to start with the top of the bill, Agit Kabayel versus Andriy Rudenko. And this was a very good fight from Agit Kabayel. More aggressive than I was expecting, but perhaps some of that came down to the opponent, Andriy Rudenko, visibly was gassing from about round 4 onwards, and he was dropped in this fight. So I'll quickly go for the first few rounds, give you a flavour of what went on. Kabayel, as you might expect, sort of started off popping the jab. He was moving, looked relaxed, even trying to clown Rudenko a couple of times early in the fight, sort of looked to throw a looping right hand, but then sort of popped the jab in his face. There were a few nice right hands landed in that first round. Rudenko was the aggressor, pressing forward, trying to track down Kabayel. And it was much the same in round 2, and Rudenko seemed to be gaining a bit of confidence, trying to close the distance, really pour on the pressure, let his hands go, but he did have limited success. And Kabayel, he continued to circle and jab, and he was letting the right hand go when he could. In round 3, there was a bit of a change in tact in this fight from Kabayel. He must have been instructed to throw more uppercuts, which he was, and they were starting to land. And there was also more trading from Kabayel from the mid-range. He wasn't running as much. But in round 4, this really was where Kabayel changed tack. From the first round where he was sort of circling and moving, he really started to become the aggressor, putting the pressure on here in round 4, forcing Rudenko back, who was starting to tire. Visibly, he looked like he was tiring, and Kabayel was throwing more chopping right hands, left hooks. He was working the body, and body work was a feature in this fight. It's important, and it leads to a knockdown later on. There was some decent back and forth action in round 4, but Rudenko was looking to gas a bit. And it was more of the same in round 5 and round 6, and Rudenko looked to be, in round 6, really tired, visibly gassing, looked to be running on fumes, and Kabayel threw some shots to the body and dropped him. Andriy Rudenko down in the 6th round. And there was a moment there when the ref was giving the count where Rudenko's body language was very poor. I didn't know if he was going to continue or if he wanted to continue. Ultimately, he did. And he survived the round. Kabayel was looking to pour it on, try get him out of there. And that continued into round 7. He was looking for the finish, but he couldn't really land clean enough, often enough. But he was peppering Rudenko throughout, who was clearly still a bit hurt. And he wasn't really doing too much. It became a bit of a procession, round 8, round 9, round 10, where it was just all Kabayel. He was really putting a beat down on Rudenko, really putting it on him, and he was looking very good. I guess there is a question about the power, because Rudenko was hurt at times and Kabayel just couldn't quite get him out of there. There was a number of instances where he thought actually it might be sort of leading up to a finish here, but he just couldn't quite get the job done. Into those later rounds, round 11 and 12, it looked like Rudenko was getting a little bit of a second win. He started to actually throw some more shots at this point, and ultimately he survived the fight. Kabayel didn't take as many risks in round 12. It got through all 12 here, and it went to the cards, and it was a comfortable decision to Agit Kabayel. 116, 111, 117, 110, 119, 108. I actually thought the 116, 111 card was way too close. Rudenko, he may have won a couple of the early rounds, but after that, especially from round 4 onwards, it was all Kabayel right throughout. So what next for Agit Kabayel? Well, after the fight, and I had to rely on some translations from Twitter here, but his trainer is saying that they want to have him in next with a top 10 guy. So this is something I think many fans would like to see. Kabayel is a talent, very good boxer. Maybe there are some questions about the power here, and can he get some guys out of there at the top level, similar to kind of like Joseph Parker. At the lower levels, he was stopping guys, but his talents were getting him through on decisions at the higher level. We'll have to see what happens next with Agit Kabayel. I would certainly like to see him in with at least the top 20 guy next, because I believe this guy is firmly within the world top 15 right now. He is that good in my view. Okay, moving to the co-feature of the night, this was Tom Schwarz, who was undefeated 23-0 heading into this fight. He's got a high WBO ranking, the WBO Intercontinental title. That was on the line here. He was facing Kristizan Kristisic. And I said ahead of this fight that I didn't really think much of it because Kristisic, a former cruiserweight, had a padded record, 17-1, but really he was never likely to trouble Schwartz, and it was going to likely end in a stoppage earlier rather than later. And that's exactly what we got here. Schwartz from round one came out relatively aggressive, coming forward, looking to land the right hand and also body shots. And he did actually land quite a few nice body shots there, while Kristisic didn't really show much, seemed to be looking for a Hail Mary right hand, and there was not much else there to his arsenal. He did actually tag Schwartz a couple of times throughout this fight with the right hand, but Schwartz not really troubled by it. And it was all downhill from the second round. Prior to the first knockdown from a right hand, I was actually thinking there looks to be some really bad body language here from Kristisic, and that it was going to probably end soon. And within a minute or so, it was over. 1 minute and 3 knockdowns. So that first one came from a right hand, dropped him, and from that first knockdown, the referee obviously wasn't sort of paying too much attention to Kristisic, or perhaps he was, but he didn't. He was just ignoring it because it looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked like he wanted it to be waved off, but the referee was just ignoring it, and it continued. And it gave Schwartz an opportunity to look destructive, and there were 3 knockdowns in total. And in the end, from the third one, even though Kristisic probably could have beaten the count, he opted to stay on the mat, and it was waved off. So a second round KO against another overmatched opponent for Tom Schwarz. It was expected, so, you know, I'm not going to go overboard with praise here because this is what we expected was going to happen. He moves to 24-0, defends his WBO Intercontinental title, and he will likely continue to have that top 5 ranking within the WBO. He's got to step up soon because it is looking like he is really just milking that German market, the local fans. They are building him up there, and I just wonder, you know, what's going to happen when he does actually step up, because it's hard to say. He's a bit of an enigma. I just don't really know how good he is. And there were a couple of comments on Twitter, actually, one from Dave Allen, who basically indicated that Samir Nebo, who's German, had said that Tom Schwarz couldn't take the skin of a rice pudding. Well, that was effectively what he was saying. So he was saying he can't punch. And Nathan Gorman, he was also in on that conversation, saying that he thought Schwarz looks stiff and he wouldn't mind facing him, thinks he can beat him. So obviously some of Schwartz's peers like what they see in terms of him being an opponent that they think they could beat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next, because he's overdue for a proper step-up fight beyond some of these cans that he is being fed. And that's what's happening now. This guy was an overmatched opponent, and for a guy who is approaching 25 fights, it's really not good enough. Okay, we'll get to the next televised fight featuring Peter Kadiru, the standout amateur. But before I do that, I'll just sort of note there were a number of other fights on this bill, but none of them were on the stream. It was disappointing, so I can't really update you on those. They weren't broadcast, so there were, you know, a number of guys I was looking forward to seeing, some prospects who were coming through, some of them who looked like they could be decent pros, but, you know, they just weren't televised. But Peter Kadiru, he was on the bill, the standout amateur who's done, you know, got all sorts of accolades on the amateur scene, turning pro, his first fight versus Artur Kubiak. Overall, it was a comfortable points win in a 6-rounder against Kubiak. And I got to say, Kubiak came in decent condition, apparently from an MMA background. He came into the fight with a 1-win, no-loss record, very durable, came better than advertised, and certainly a tougher first opponent than many other pro boxers face. So Kadiru did actually have his hands full at time because Kubiak kept coming, and he kept trying to, you know, trade with Kadiru when the opportunity arose. In those first couple of rounds, Kadiru just feeling his way into the pro game, not overly aggressive, showed some flashes of speed with his 1-2, but not really doing too much. And Kubiak did take that as an invitation to start applying a bit more aggression and pressure from round 2, putting up the high guard, burrowing in, looking to land overhand rights, looking to really put it on Kadiru. But ultimately, Kadiru was able to weather this brief storm of aggression, and he got in control from round 3, showing good hand speed, good footwork. He looked relaxed and fluid, but he was guilty of headhunting. He neglected the body, which was there for him all night if he wanted it, but he didn't take it. He became a little bit predictable for Kubiak, who basically knew if anything was coming at him, it was coming at his head. So he was able to sort of put up the high guard and sort of fend off anything that was coming. He did try to put it on Kubiak in the 6th round, and some of these highlights you can actually find on my Twitter. So my Twitter handle @boxing_squared. So I've got about a minute or so of highlights from that 6th round. And also you can find the Tom Schwarz knockout from the 2nd round also on there. So if you want to see some limited highlights from those fights, go check out my Twitter. Overall though, from Peter Kadiru, it was a decent performance. It wasn't amazing, but a win is a win, and he moves on. And I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of Peter Kadiru. He does look like a name to watch. We'll have to see how they match him in the next year or so, but they will probably take it softly, at least for the first, 12 to 18 months on the opponent front. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.